And now, Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda commences tonight's satsang with the Sanskrit peace chant.
Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We begin with mystic song by Sri Swami Lalitananda, played and sung by Sri Swami Umananda and Rajneesh.
Our song tonight is based on a poem by Swamiji. It's called Somewhere. Somewhere, someone plays the flute and sings a mystic song that comes sweeping over the mountains by lakes and forests, dancing on ocean waves, playing with shining stars. Somewhere, someone beyond the wheel of time is singing a sweet song, and in the early dawn, as I listen, I become one with a song. The world fades like the morning mist. I have become. I am We are recording from the ashram of our revered Guru, Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda in Miami, Florida. Today is May the 19th, 2021, Wednesday evening, and tonight Swamiji will be lecturing on the Yoga Vasistha. This is series 2018, class number 338. And now Atman Sri Swami Jyotirmayananda.
Om Brahmanandam Param Sukhadam Kevalam Jnanamurtim Dvandvatitam Gagana Sadrisham Tatamasyadi Lakshyam Ekam Nityam Vimalamachalam Sarvadhi Sakshi Bhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tam Namami. Om. Adorations to Sadguru, who is Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, embodiment of pure consciousness, one without a second, vast as the ether, infinite, eternal, beyond the three gunas and their modifications, the supreme preceptor. Om. Yoga Vasistha Nirvana Prakarana Purvardha, section 85. Section continues. Chudala as Kumbha Muni. Remember, Queen Chudala tells a made-up story about her identity as a divine youth. Okay, hold off. Queen Chudala, in the form of the divine youth, said to Shikhidwaja, O king, listen to my story. I am the son of a great sage, Narada, son of the great sage. One sage Narada happened to witness the apsaras sporting in a lake in the midst of the enchanting scenes of nature. The subtle desire, which were not yet sublimated from his heart, led him to a momentary fall from his spiritual ideal. His mind, overcome by desire, gave rise to the birth of a male child in a strange manner. I was brought up as a child of Narada, but in a jar. All complicated story. Therefore, I am named Kumbha Muni, the sage arising out of a jar. All this is highly mystical, but in a storyline, it's a marvelous story. Narada falls for an apsara, and in that process, his virya falls into a little jar, and out of the jar comes a personality. And that's Kumbha Muni. The similar implication is there when we say Kumbhaja Rishi. Soon you will find the deeper meaning of this. Do not be surprised to hear of the distraction that affected the mind of sage Narada. Even a moment's lapse from the vision of the spiritual goal can lead one to untold consequences. The mind in an ignorant person becomes deeply colored by the objects of the world. A cloth in which saffron has been kept continues to be colored even when the saffron is taken away from it. In the same way, the mind of an ignorant person continues to be colored by the subtle desires even in the absence of the objects of the world. The destruction of all desire for objects is liberation. But the presence of desire is an expression of bondage. All these are profound insight into enlightenment. Desiring process that degrades the soul. That's the fall of virya. And being born in a jar is conditioned mind. Just like we give you this simile of look into a pot with water. In that water is a reflected sun. So that reflected sun comes to enlightened state where? Within the jar. Arises out of the jar. As if the reflected sun outgrows the jar and comes out of it and soars and shakes hands with the sun. The perspective of fulfilling a subtle desire arouses a perception of joy within oneself. This agitates the intellect, which influences the latent kundalini in the individual. Every desiring movement is related to your flow of prakriti, which implies your pranas go into a certain disturbance, your nadis don't coordinate correctly, your chakras, they don't operate in a perfect manner, there is disintegration. The soul becomes identified with the nadis and experiences pleasures by perceiving the abundant flow of vitality coursing through them. The manner in which the pranic energy courses through the nadis determines the experience of pleasure or pain. Every jiva experiences pleasure and pain according to its fructifying karma. When the chitta is externalized by the perception of pleasure or pain, it causes increasing bondage of the soul. The term externalize and internalize has to be understood in a profound way. Externalize means you are following three paths: karma, upasana, jnana. Three paths called marga. Everyone has that possibility, and that's how your mind is directed. Karma Marga, how to improve your karma. Upasana Marga, how to improve your bhavana. Jnana Marga, how to improve your understanding. And these are all distinct projects. But as long as they are all considered different projects in your life, having your choice, you can do more upasana one day, more karma another day, more jnana another day. Try to understand, you become a yogi, then all this, karma marga becomes karma yoga. Upasana marga becomes bhakti yoga and dhyana yoga. And the last one becomes jnana yoga. These four yogas are not distinct, different. You cannot separate, I will only do karma yoga. If it is yoga, if all four are integrated. Moving towards integration is internalization. Going out of integration, that is externalization. This is a profound understanding. The perception of joy in the objects of the world is due to ignorance. There is no happiness in sense objects. When the mind realizes this, the flame of desire is extinguished and liberation is attained. Thus, Chudala, in the form of the divine boy, Kumbha Muni, explained all the time his identity is falsified in a storyline. He is not he, he is she, Chudala. And the king has no awareness of it. She explained how the subtle desires of the mind agitate the pranic system, causing the vital energy to affect the fall of sex energy from one's personality. This fall is the basis of procreation. Now we have to also understand here Kumbha Muni, that Chudala, is describing the general phenomenon of fall of virya in every grihastha's life. But every child you produce may not be considered fall. It may be considered purposeful procreation. Purposeful procreation means you are advancing on your spiritual path. The soul that has come to you is also being blessed, and mutually you are moving towards God realization. With that purpose is carried on in a grihastha ashram, there is no fall. But if purpose is not being fulfilled, it has been only an act of pleasure. And children are born accidentally because of mind being overwhelmed with passion. So, there it is a story of downfall. aspirants must endeavor to understand that though the externalization of the mind is apparently pleasing, yet it is really the source of all pain. By a deep insight into the illusoriness of seeking delight in the pleasures of the senses, one should allow the vital energy to be sublimated into spiritual energy. This is a topic called sex sublimation. First stage, utilizing sex energy with a purposeful way. Second stage, sex energy is completely sublimated. You don't view yourself neither as man or woman, but as a soul. And look at others with the same vision, that they are all souls. Externality is superficial, led by karma. Thus, equipped with spiritual energy, one must endeavor to expand the horizons of the mind in or her to commune with the divine self. This is the path of brahmacharya, which is so highly eulogized in the scriptures. Continue this. Section 86. Chudala tells a fictitious story of her identity as Kumbha Muni. Sage Vasistha continued. Queen Chudala, as Kumbha Muni, continued to tell her figurative and mystic story pertaining to the essential nature of the soul. This story applies to every soul. Sage Narada imparted spiritual knowledge to me, because Narada ultimately ended up having a child. So he took the child. First he taught the child, and then to have further complement to his teaching, he took the child to Brahmaloka, where I was further instructed by the blessings of divine Brahma, the Creator. O King, I am that Kumbha Muni. Now this whole stanza is very important. It applies to every soul, and it is the ideal of affirmation. I am that Kumbha Muni, the son of sage Narada. You no longer identify yourself as with human lineage, ordinary lineage, but lineage is from saints and sages. That's why we use the word Dvija, twice born. Ordinarily it is biological birth, but that birth maintains you to view how you have descended from the line of so many persons, father, grandfather, great-great, and so forth. But with the spiritual insight, to find your soul. And as such, you have descended from godly source. Essentially, you are divine. So, I am that Kumbha Muni, the son of sage Narada. My grandfather is Brahma, the Creator himself. The Vedas are my friends. My mother is Goddess Saraswati. My abode is the world of Brahman, Brahma Swarup. My mother's sister is Gayatri Devi. That's your auntie. I roam freely in this world out of sport. I fly and soar through the sky, untouched by the earth. Akashvat. I am like the Akasha, vast space. And Akasha is not disturbed by clouds, not tainted. Clouds are storms. The world experiences move on like clouds, but I am ever untouched. Why? Because your mother is Saraswati. Your auntie is Gayatri Devi. Your father is Narada. Your grandfather is Brahma. The source of grandfather is Brahman. So that is your lineage. That's the ideal affirmation. Mystic meaning of Chudala's story. Such was the story concocted by Chudala to inspire confidence in the heart of her husband, Shikhidwaja. Though this story appears to be completely false, from an esoteric point of view, Chudala describes the essential nature of every soul. This story applies to every soul. Every aspiring individual is a descendant of the sages. The moment aspiration dawns, one is no longer confined to his earthly parents. He belongs to the line of sages and saints. Therefore, Kumbha Muni described himself as the son of Narada. Further, spiritual knowledge arises out of the jar of a mind which has been nourished by instructions proceeding from the elevated minds of the sages. An aspirant is born out of this purified mental jar. Therefore, every aspirant on the spiritual path is really a Kumbha Muni. Every aspirant is led to the realization of the divine self through the grace of Guru. So too, Kumbha Muni was led to Brahma by Narada. Brahma, the divine creator, is the grandfather of every aspiring soul. Guru is one's father, and God is one's great-great-grandfather, from a figurative point of view. When the self is realized, an aspirant discovers his essential identity with the divine self. He is no longer limited or touched by the world. All his actions become a mere sport. All his actions become karma yoga. His sentiments follow the path of bhakti yoga. The willing aspect of your mind turns into dhyana yoga. An understanding movement turns into jnana yoga. And these four are always together. They cannot be separated. There are four aspects of integral yoga movement. It is this truth which Chudala revealed to the king through this subtle mystic story. King Shikhidwaja, next section, 87. King Shikhidwaja seeks spiritual instructions from Kumbha Muni, who is Queen Chudala. As Chudala, he wouldn't have listened to her. Whereas Kumbha Muni is listening. King Shikhidwaja said, "O sage, it is my good karma and spiritual austerity performed in many lives that have led you to me. By your guidance, I am sure to advance on the path of virtue. The peace that is experienced on meeting a sage cannot be found even in gaining a vast kingdom. Association with a sage is the giver of the bliss of Brahman, which surpasses all the attainments of this world." Now the king is gradually waking up. The first awakening is to understand the importance of satsanga. Remember, satsangatve nisangatvam. Satsanga promotes detachment, nisangatvam. Nisangatve nirmohatvam. Detachment allows your mind to be free of moha, delusional vision. Nirmohatve nischalatatvam. When moha is not there, then your understanding of yourself becomes unshaken, that deep down you are essentially Brahman. Nishchal tattve jivan mukti. This leads you to liberation in life. So that glory of Sant Samaj and Satsanga entered the mind of Shikhidwaja. Kumbha Muni interrupted the king, saying, "Please do not indulge in praising me. Rather tell me about yourself. Who are you? What are you seeking on this mountain? How long have you been in this forest? And what do you expect to gain in your austerities? Please answer these questions without hiding any truth." King Shikhidwaja replied, "O sage, you are the son of a god. You are the knower of the mysteries of this world, as well as the higher worlds. What am I to tell you, who are all knowing? However, I will tell you about myself briefly. Being afraid of the worldly process, I took recourse to this forest. I do not want to be subjected to repeated birth and death. Therefore, I am performing severe austerities in this forest. But just as a pauper is unable to find wealth In the same manner, I am unable to experience abiding peace. Now he had come to realize that mere practice of austerity and various disciplines doesn't lead to enlightenment. If you are not guided by Guru, or if you are not enriched by satsanga, because as enriched by satsanga, you learn the skill of turning your life along the path of integral yoga. Though I am performing various austerities day by day, I am moving from pain to greater pain. This is the first awakening. Do not be fulfilled by the idea how much austerity you have practiced. And do not go on looking into your diary. How many malas have you done? How many days you escaped taking salt? I'm joking. And many other disciplines. People are always proud of how much have I done. Don't be proud of those. But be proud of any experience that makes you more and more devoted to integral movement, that makes you more and more of a yogi. All my austerities are based upon scriptures, yet they have become like poison to me. Why is it so? Kumuni replied, O king, once upon a time I asked my divine grandfather, Brahma, O Lord, which is the means to liberation, jnana or karma? It simply means nivritti or pravritti. Which is the means to liberation? Pravritti means staying involved with karma, improving your karma. Must realize improving your karma is a means to yoga, but not yoga itself. Improving karma means you decide you have done so much charity now, and you have figured out your geographical contributions. You contributed to this village, contributed to that village, and so forth. So all the details that you hold in the name of good karma, that's called pravritti. Is it the right course? Or nivritti, which means the path of integral yoga. Which is better? Marga, karma marga, bhakti marga, jnana marga, or karma yoga, bhakti yoga, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga? Which is better? I've already explained the difference between marga, path, and yoga. As long as the mind is dominated by vasanas, so long it is of the nature of jnaya, knowable. As long as there is vasanas, your mind has to be entertaining inquiry of what is to be known, what is real knowledge. When it is free of the vasanas, it becomes jnana. Here again you have to understand, vasanas, their presence and absence of vasanas, these two stages are in different progressive degrees. In other words, within one step, you don't change from vasana to nirvasana, from vasana to void of vasana. You understand the different stages of vasanas. Prasupta. In children, the klishta vasanas are dormant. Klishta vasanas are vasanas based upon ignorance, egoism, attachment, hatred, and fear of death. And these vasanas, they are latent in a child. Those who have practiced sadhana, they bring about attenuated state. Those who lack sadhana, in them vasanas, klishta vasanas, are very extended, called udar. Those who have disciplined and have not completed it, it's called vichinna. Vasanas become under the rug. Appear like you have controlled everything until under a challenging situation when the negative vasana dominates the mind. But the ideal state is dagdha state. Vasanas become burnt up by enlightenment. So, how to bring about the burnt up state of vasana? And that becomes possible by integral yoga. Once the mind is illumined by knowledge of the self, one is not born again. Kumbh Chudala continued, O king, such was the teaching I received from Brahma, the creator. The greatest of the wise are of the view that it is jnana alone that leads one to liberation. Therefore, why have you taken to karma by abandoning the path of jnana? Why are you involved in pravritti? Your mind is immersed in whatever small objects you process, you possess, such as the kamandalu, the stick, the seed. The idea is simple living and divine thinking is not to be taken literally. Simple living doesn't mean you restrict all the possessions. The more you restrict, the more you are attached. You become attached to even your kamandalu vessel, attached to your mala, attached to your mat, attached to your yoga seats, and so forth. On the other hand, simple living means no matter how many things you possess, internally you are detached. Their presence and absence do not disturb your deeper level. So instead of keeping the mind confused about what to possess and what not to possess, you should be meditating upon, who am I? Whence did this painful world arise? How can there be the cessation of the world process? Mind that is activated by vichar, that's the purposeful state. Hold on. Okay. You should approach these sages who are enlightened, and by serving them, you should learn the art of inquiry into the nature of the self. So vichar that activates your movement to enlightenment. And vichar is a subtle process. It doesn't mean that you are always stressed out, but it means you are involved in integral yoga. Everything you do, view it as worship of God. Maintain bhakti as the highlight in your personality, devotion. View yourself an instrument in divine hand. God is Upadrashta, He is overseeing you. He is Anumanta, He is inspiring you. He is Bharta, He is your real support. And in reality, it is God who is the enjoyer and experiencer through your limited personality. Who is the experiencer? This soul is a reflected sun. Whatever reflected sun does, the credit goes to the sun, not to the reflection. And therefore, thus you are led to understand you are Maheshwara. You are not Jiva, you are Shiva. So this whole movement brought into your personality, that becomes possible in an integral way, day by day. Everything that you do is a part of this movement. That becomes automatic, saj. But you are immersed in observing fasts, religious vows and austerities. In this cave of the mountain, you are passing your time like a bookworm that abides in his scriptures. You can lick up every letter of the scripture and stay a worm. And with this I will conclude. Om. Om. Om Shri Ramaya Namah. Om Shri Ramaya Namah. Om Shri Ramaya Namah. Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om. Prayer for shower of Karuna, Maras, grace of God over all of you, with the blessings of Shakti, Bhakti and Mukti. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvarupunga Bandhana Mrityor Mukhyama Mritat. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Tatsat.
We conclude for tonight and rejoin Swamiji on Friday at 7:30 for the Tulsi Ramayana.
Om Shri Satgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai.
Yeah.